Everybody, and welcome back to session 5 of 6. It's amazing to think that 5 weeks now have passed since we started gathering together on these Friday afternoons. It's a pleasure to be back with you again today. Just a couple of housekeeping items as we get started here. One is if you go into the Google folder, you'll notice that it's been rearranged. Instead of it being arranged by week, where it said, one-recording, one-Q&A, one-, it now starts with recording session 1, recording session 2. So it's gotten organized by thing you're looking for rather than by session number, because some feedback we got that might be better, and I agree with that. So that's one housekeeping item. The other housekeeping item I want to just give a shout out as Sparty's reflecting here on great gratitude for Lindsay and Nikki, who both are helping with the closed captioning to try to make sure that that gets done in a timely manner. YouTube, when we load it up to YouTube, they do an auto-generated one, and it's not high quality enough to leave stand on its own merit. It's very time consuming to go through and correct them. And I was doing those, and I asked for volunteers, and Lindsay and Nikki stepped up and have both been doing those. So thank you so much. I know it's a labor of love. Lindsay and I were saying it's sort of like a new hobby for the common good, right? Like it gives you something to focus on, and it's helping people. So that's kind of a cool thing. If anybody else would be interested in closed captioning, if you send me an email, I'll assign a video to you, and you can join the team if you're interested in doing that. But thank you so much. And then Lindsay and I were talking about the blooper reel for that, because sometimes what the YouTube auto correctioner thinks I said and what I said are really not the same thing, and it's kind of funny. So, okay, why am I having trouble here? All right, so we're going to start off right away here today with some settling in. So if you could do a quick check of your environment and make whatever modifications it might make sense for you to make to just give you the best shot at being able to stay focused here with us today. So do the external environment adjustment. Ask for what you need. And then let's do the internal environment as well. So I'm going to shut my video off and just invite you to close your eyes or let your gaze soften and relax on a specific point just a few feet ahead of you. Or again, you can enjoy the flame on the candle on the screen. Just today, want you to gather and release is what we're trying to do today. Just gather our energy, gather all the hyperness you might be feeling, gathering all the rushed quality, as we're breathing in and on that first set of breaths, just noticing our breath going in, noticing our breath as it leaves our body, bringing our actual attention to where the air is coming in through your nostrils. And as it leaves, out through your mouth, in through your nose, hold, out through your mouth. Just breathe in a natural rhythm with that for just a few moments. And then on the next couple breaths, just bring your attention to the energy in your body, to the quality of the energy. And if you are feeling rushed or sped up or activated or churned up, jazzed up, however you think about it, just imagine yourself gathering that energy up in a bundle and then allowing it to fall away from you into the floor. Gather and release any tension. Like, do you have any spots of tension in your body? And can you just notice those? And on the next breath, sort of acknowledge that part of your body. And then as you exhale, See if you can relax around that body part. Taking on the position of a more relaxed person with each breath as you gather and release. Bundling up worries and troubles and letting them release. Allowing yourself to set aside for now the other to-dos and what-abouts. Just releasing and relaxing back into that energy of openness and receiving. Settling into a state of mind of openness and steadiness and groundedness as we continue to have this heartfelt conversation. And when you're ready, we'll continue. And since I can't see if you're all ready, I'm going to assume that you are. Just wanted to go through some feedback highlights from the week that I thought were really meaningful. And one person, and there's kind of an echo of this. These are some of the things that kind of echoed in the feedback. We are not broken. Like that's what the innate health and well-being diagram really helped people see, that they're not broken. Not only that they're not broken, but we are not broken. And that we may be having a story and we may have had a hard time and we may have a lot on our minds and on our hearts, but underneath that, we have all the capacity we've ever had. And we can look to that capacity in a moment. I love this quote. I could hear somebody saying, deep thoughts. Wow, like the real me. Good stuff. And I don't know if that's how the person actually said it, but that's how I read it. Yeah, it is good stuff, right? Like that all of the story, all the beliefs, all the rules, all the thoughts, all the things I think are true, that's actually not who I am. And that I wasn't born with that stuff. I learned it. If I learned it, might I be able to unlearn it and let something different come forward? So many of the thoughts and rules that we pick up limit us. And then we like live in a smaller frame than maybe we need to. And I will probably go to my grave or whatever the equivalent of that might be, ashes to ashes, having not seen all the ways I still limit myself. But I know I can tell you 100% for sure, I'm living more free than I was and than I have been in my past. And, you know, there's a psychological closet that we keep ourselves in that we need to come out of too. So I appreciate that feedback. Somebody was really appreciating several voices for this, saying that they appreciate that this is self-awareness and self-assessment with a structure, as opposed to sometimes it just sounds ethereal and you don't know what to do or how to like move through it. So some folks are appreciating the structure to it, which I think is great. One of my favorite quotes of the feedback of the week is that this is not a perfect, it's a practice. And I love it, the idea of a perfect. Yeah, it's not a perfect, it's a practice. And so we want to be really gentle with ourselves as we're brand new learners. And for some of you, this is the first time you've experienced some of these concepts. And so you're that, you know, that freaking first time position of like trying to stumble around like a toddler toddles for a reason. They haven't quite learned the muscle coordination to walk yet. And we certainly don't judge and get all over a toddler for falling down. We try to help them get back up and we try to help them not hurt themselves, but there's some toddling. So this is not a perfect. It never will be. You can do it for 30 years, getting close to it. For me, 25 anyway. And you know, I still, it's a work in progress. It's not a perfect, it's a practice, a daily, lifelong practice. This person, when you said be with emotion, just be with it. as opposed to thinking you have to do something about it, just to be with it, but not let it have power over you. That really hit for quite a few of you, that this comment kind of resonates with a lot of the feedback. That it hit this person like it was like a light bulb went off. It's okay to feel that. It's okay to feel that way. Just don't let it have power. And what I appreciate about the sentence is that it's about allowing and just letting yourself feel the feelings that would make sense for a human to feel. It's also captures that amazing quality of having a new thought, seeing something this way, and then, that changes everything. I see it bigger, a light bulb, an aha moment. At the very beginning, I said this was not an information-oriented class. That was what was most important about this, was the insights that you would have about the skills and concepts that we would be talking about. And so this feedback really represents that somebody was receiving, and then something got in that was really new, and then they had a different thought about it, and then that is their knowing. This is a person bursting into knowing in this moment. And this idea about being with the emotion, but not letting it have power. This is like one of the sweet spots of this, for sure. And it takes a while to get the hang of it, just like it takes a while to learn how to balance when you're learning to ride a bike, right? But the idea that you could have an emotion, which your emotions are kind of your internal weather. That's one of the ways a lot of metaphors with emotion go around weather. It's your internal weather. And just like my daughter and I went for a walk the other night when it was raining and we got soaked. It was fun. We both liked that, so it's cool. But on a different night when we went out to start doing that, it was clear that it was lightning. And so the awareness that there was lightning and that made it differently dangerous caused us to change our plan. And the same is true with my internal emotions sometimes, that sometimes I need to be with it and I need to allow it to be. I just maybe don't want to be out in it, and I don't want to be crafting out of it, and I don't want to be taking action out of it maybe right now. Maybe I do, but I kind of want the deeper, wiser part of me to have something to say. So, it's just like coming out of the storm. You can come out of the storm and keep yourself safer, and yet still witness and watch the storm and sit with the storm. Some people like to come in on their porch, and just sit and watch the storm. I spent tons of time with my mom in my lifetime watching storms come in. Another way to think about it is that if you're playing at a big lake and there's turbulent waves, waves happen. You can't stop the waves. But we might want to witness the turbulent, when it gets turbulent, we might want to sit on the shore and watch that. So those two kind of ways to be with it is to let it be, but not be out in it. So I wanted to kind of talk about that. For some reason, my clicker's not working like I want it to. This comment, wow, this is what the resilience trainer hopes happens for some people. I actually hope it happens for all of you in your own time, in your own way, and in moments. When you start to have insights, it changes how you're holding what you've been carrying. It's what gives me hope, the expression that she has emotional baggage or he has emotional baggage. It's not like because those things happen, we have to carry the baggage for the rest of our lives. I used to have it framed that way, and my bag was pretty full. My bag was full before I was 15, and ended up kind of with some suicidal ideation because it just felt so heavy. And I thought it was going to be heavy my whole life. And then folks helped me see how, processing that and releasing and allowing myself to kind of wonder about those things allowed some of that to heal. Love the part in here about I'm not alone because, like Brene Brown's book says, I thought it was just me, but it isn't. And that we actually get covered up and carry that baggage in very similar ways. What specifically is in my bag versus what's in your bag is different and based on human differences. But we are all carrying stuff. And some of us start to see it and know that what we're carrying is not who we are. And other folks are kind of in that other outside-in framework where it's harder. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that and to reinforce that we are not broken and we never were. We just thought we were. We have just thought we are. but it turns out we're not. And that vantage point changes everything. So somebody asked in the clarification in the survey to say a little bit more about the E's. So I'm going to try to do that in a way. So the E just really stands for external circumstances. And it can be any external circumstance that you're dealing with. And so before the session, I just gave you some ideas of mine. I guess that's not going to work as well as I thought it was, so I'll kind of bring it in here. These are some of the things that I might have going on with me. I made a mistake this week that impacted some people. It's not the first time since I've been doing a webinar that I admitted I made a mistake. There's a virus out there, in case nobody knows that, newsflash. I'll have a kid back at home with no plan about what the next chapter is because of COVID-19. I've been doing some grocery shopping, which is a different kind of thing than it used to be. I got a virtual graduation open house happening. My kid, same kid, is going to move to New York City soon, and his brother may go with him. I got 2 500-person webinar classes that I'm tending to. My wife is sheltering beautifully elsewhere, which is a thing. And there were armed men at our state capitol yesterday. Inside the state capitol yesterday. So those are some things that are happening. And if you have the old outside-in framework, you might say, I am going to be anxious until I can get these things taken care of. And if I can line them up a certain way or do a certain thing with them, then I'll be fine. But some of these things aren't going to change, like ever. Like this virus, we don't know when this virus won't be an active part of our daily life. The thing that's interesting is at any given moment, some new thing could show up. As I was reflecting on this morning, I was remembering a time when I was helping my wife move into a house. She wasn't my wife then. And I was just joyfully helping and feeling good about that. And then I was carrying some boxes out to her garage. And I had a lot on my wall already, and I sprained my ankle. And for the next 2.5, did a pretty good job on it. And for the next 2.5 weeks, that all of a sudden was an external circumstance. And so when you have this vantage point, if the E's on top of this picture are the sticky notes on the wall, I don't want them to be like all in me. I want to have the kind of perspective that's like, yep, that's what I got going on right now. Okay, what's the most important thing? And which are the things I need to lean into? And what do I need to give my psychological energy to today? I can tell you that today, the virtual graduation open houses got precedence because it's tomorrow. And the grocery shopping is a thing. And connecting with my wife, always a thing. And she's on the call, so hi, how you doing? Connecting now. The armed men at the Capitol, I'm gonna maybe just have to wonder about that. Because if I start to have thoughts about that, I'm likely to get into a thought store that will totally consume large chunks of my day today. It's not that I don't want to care about that issue or have something to say or do about it. I just know that right now it's not going to help me do this webinar. And the kid moving to New York City, not till next year, right? And oh wait, maybe all of a sudden we get another one, and all of a sudden someone says you have to teach another course, and you weren't supposed to have to do that because somebody's sick or somebody's retiring or somebody whatever. Or maybe I got laid off. Well, okay, that's there, but I don't want to think I have to be in an upset until that gets solved. Okay, that happened, and I need to figure out how to navigate it. So essential skills for navigating difficult times, right? We are not the times either. We are a person moving through the times. These are my circumstances. These are my external circumstances, and I'm bringing my life energy to it. So back to the picture on the screen, I have endless and ever-present creative energy that will allow me to navigate those. That's what resilience really is knowing I have it and being able to use it. because we will never have a time. This is what happens when people feel like, well, when I was in high school, there was a guy from the Jostens Ring Company or something, and he did this motivational talk when he started, like, you know, he started in middle school. It's like, well, when I get into high school, I'll be a real deal. Well, when I'm no longer a freshman, well, when I'm an upperclassman, well, when I go to college, well, when I graduate, when I get that first job, when I get, you know, and he went into the academic world. When I get to be, you could do that. When I get to be, when I get my PhD, when I retire, it's like people think when they retire that they're not going to have any troubling things, but right away, like, and if we don't have a stance where, like, we are wondering how we want to arrange some of that and what we'd like to do about some of that, then it just continues to come at us. And we end up in what I call the if-then nightmare. If blank, then I can feel whole. If blank, then I can relax. If blank, then I can have a good day. Right? It goes on and on and on. I used to be super conditional. Like, if my mom had a strong opinion and didn't like what I did, you know, so I would say, I'm okay as long as she understands my boundary, right? And that was a trap, because I may have the external circumstances of a mom who doesn't understand my boundary. And so I need to, like, practice calm and figure out what I want to do about that. And maybe not just do what she says, because I'm only okay if. Turns out I started to become more okay, even if she didn't agree with my choices. You know, which, you know, a friend of mine always teases me still that I went to the first day of graduate school. This sort of more feminine friend was wearing a Michigan State shirt, a sweatshirt, and I was wearing, like, you know, a fancy dress because mom said so, right? So I hadn't learned yet how to do what I needed to do without regard. So even if somebody's up here and upset, I can still navigate. So I hope that that's helpful in terms of that question. Somebody else really, like, I get lost every time we talk about the thought bucket. So I just want to try this again, because there was more than one person that said that. So in this diagram, I already thought is just that. It's just thinking that is not brand new and fresh. It's memory-based thought. It is not negative. It is not something to be avoided at any cost. It is just thoughts that I've had before. So I was talking with Megan today, and some things occurred to me. I remembered some things from my memory, all my stories, like the metaphors I use, the way I've learned to talk about things, those are already thoughts as well. We have some conditioned thoughts. I have some conditioned thoughts that are helpful too. Sometimes when people ask you to practice a mantra or affirmations, they're trying to get already thoughts that might be more helpful in your bucket. The problem sometimes with those folks is they think that when you're having this difficult thought, you should actually take that out and put this particular thought in. And we don't need to manage our already thought bucket. We don't need to, like, you know, because it's in this diagram, you'll see, like, it's about removing your psychological attention from that thought, as opposed to making sure it's not in your thought bucket anymore. There's still thoughts in my thought bucket that pop up sometimes. If I see them, I just want to gently disregard them and go on. But I might not be able to make myself not have them. So they're memory-based thoughts. They're positive or negative, or anywhere on or neutral, right? And what you're really looking for is to just be able to witness that you're having a thought, and seeing how that thought's, you know, determining what comes next with this thought cycle. That whatever thought you're holding on to is going to turn into your feeling state and your physiological experience, and then swing you up out of that. You're going to take some behavior and have an outcome. And so it's just witnessing it, and, like, asking your deeper, wiser self if where you're headed in this moment is kind of where you want to be. So I hope that's clear. Another piece of feedback and question that I always say, like, if I hear it once, somebody else has got it too, and sometimes I hear it more than once, so we need to go. So I was having a conversation yesterday, it's an excellent conversation, I really appreciated, with somebody sort of saying that a group of people that are in this class are struggling sometimes with the resolve part of the 6-word framework, particularly when what you're called to do and your values are called to do put you at odds with somebody that maybe is not safe or has power over you. And so kind of people feeling like if they couldn't do the thing, that somehow they were like failing at the 6-word framework activity. And it made me realize that it needed to be clarified that just like we could think about thought being something that thought cycle that I just showed you is how thought works in the moment, where like in this particular moment, I can notice that I'm attached to a thought and it's bringing me experience and I'm having a reality and I can do something to let that clear away. We can also talk, like we did last week, about how thought works over time, where like over time I layer up a story on top of myself and I end up with a self-concept that is how thought gets held over time. Similarly, this 6-word framework can be something that it's not, first of all, it's not a once and done thing about any particular issue. And you can use it in a red hot moment when like something really has you reeling and you just need to acknowledge and honor, release and relax, and then maybe reflect and resolve to, it might actually be something that you can work through all 6 of them in a moment related to something like the basement example, the basement flooding example, where although even in that example, had to do it more than, I had to go back to it on more than one occasion over the course of the night. In the moment, it helped me clear out, get grounded, move forward, and it helped me be on energy saver mode. And yet still over the course of the night, okay, so that was a confined experience that, by the end of the week at least, that experience was behind me. It was no longer one of my sticky notes. But sometimes there's an area of your life where you're trying to be value guided and it's just difficult and there's challenges. And you might go back to that 6-word framework as a way to kind of help guide you over and over and over with that. Some examples might be that I was just wondering about, like, what were some examples? Like my aging process, right? Like there's going to be a moment in time where I can't do something that I used to be able to do. And I will, in that moment, either resist or resent that that's true, or I may look to the 6-word framework. But that's not something that's just going to be like, I'm going to do it once and done. It's like I want to think about and reflect on some values about how I want to age, and what my directional quality might be. So that if I have a directional quality about my aging process, that doesn't mean that I'm still not going to have moments where I get caught up in thoughts about something, or I'm dissatisfied about something related to my appearance or my ability. It's just that's what I'm going to notice, the resistance, and then I'm going to notice, these were my values. So the aging process is one of them. Just trying to give you a couple ideas because I want you to see that it's a framework for living. It's not a framework for checking things off and taking care of, like, making sure, like, if I do the 6-word thing, that thing's going to have a particular outcome. That would be like watering a garden and then thinking you're just done, as opposed, or a better example, it's like a firefighter doesn't go up to a burning building with a glass of water, or sometimes even one truck full of water, and use it and then say, well, I'm sorry, it didn't work, right? They have to bring a lot of water to a wildfire before it turns, and they don't even get to know when it's going to turn. They just know they're bringing it in the wisest way they know how, and using the data and the science that they have to try to sustain a change. Similarly, you might have some kind of wildfire in your personal or professional life that you're navigating. So an example is striving to be an active anti-racist white person. That's not ever going to get done. That is like a ... continuation. This is, it is how I've chosen to try to live, and I would like to know way more about doing that effectively than I currently do. I miss the mark often. And when I do miss the mark, instead of shaming myself because I didn't get it done, I try to come back and say, okay, I can learn more. I can do that differently next time. Another example is navigating finances as a single mom raising 3 teenagers without much child support. That was daunting. And I had to go back to this framework, including making choices about navigating my desire to parent and be connected with the desire to be financially independent. So even what business I decided, what extra gigs I took on or didn't, during that time, it couldn't just be because I want to or because people want me to. I had to use my inspired creativity, my thoughts, my values at the time were financial freedom through inspired creativity and service to other people. And those were the things that I used to determine whether I said yes or no to something. So I would relax into a space with the request. Now there's a request on the wall. If I had a rule, it'd be don't say no to people because, you can't, people deserve to have this knowledge. Okay, that's true. But I'm going to expend my energy too much if I don't have some way to navigate that. So back then, that was my mantra. Financial freedom, which at that point meant not charging toilet paper, financial freedom through inspired creativity and service to other people. And so that's how I decided. And then I would say yes or no to those things based on what I determined about that. Okay, that gig has high service to other people and it'll take a lot of time and it won't bring any extra revenue in. I'm going to need to say no to that right now. This one is, got some money connected to it, but I don't really get to do it how I want to do it. I'm going to have to do it according to somebody else's plan, and I don't even think that's a good plan. So it doesn't have enough inspired creativity, so I'm going to say no. So just as an example of some other ways, if you have an insecure and oppressive boss, let's say he's white and male and entitled and doesn't see any of his privileges, I'm just making this up, may have seen it a time or two. Navigating that is not something that you should be able to just willy-nilly do the 6-word framework and then be done and have it solved. And your measure of whether the 6-word framework is useful and helpful or whether you're navigating the 6-word framework effectively should have nothing to do with the outcome of the other person. And if that person is not changing, you want to continue to reflect on how to be most who you can be in that scenario and be lined up with your values the most, and asking yourself questions that maybe help you see something different because you're looking for new ideas on how to navigate an ongoing difficult challenge. The last one that I just wanted to name, because this also came up in a conversation yesterday, if you want to be a compassionate supervisor who actively supports your team members because you want to show up in that way and you want to show up to the fullest extent possible as people start to navigate the bereavement issues that they may be experiencing, all kinds of losses, that don't fit the MSU policy for time off, right? And so, if that's your situation, you may be reflecting and seeking to resolve to use your voice differently, and that's not always going to be an easy thing. But what we know is a lot of the policies at the institutional level, a lot of the policies get implemented by individuals who are supervisors, and they actually have a lot of ability to influence that and to change that. So the cutting edge of that for me would be, am I influencing that and changing that to the fullest extent possible given where I'm at? And if I can go home at the end of the night and say, I moved in the direction of my values, that's a good day. It's not, did I arrive at my destination? Then I get to say, cool. It's, am I moving in the direction of my values? When people get stuck in their dissertation process and they start to not thrive and they start to not produce, they can't have the value, the measure of good work being having their dissertation done if at the end of the day, when I go to bed, I can feel like I made movement, then that's a good day, right? So I'm hoping that that's helpful. I kind of want to ask the question if that was helpful to the person, but I think I can't in the way that we're here. So the 187 of you. So so I'll just leave it there for now. So take a reset breath. Feel free to join me if you'd like. I'm going to make sure I don't go too fast and not too slow. That last part, there's this 6-word framework, and then there's other skills that we have. Like, it's not like these are the only skills that will help you resolve effectively. We're going to talk about resolving a little bit more towards the end. If what your values tell you is that you have to have a tough conversation, and it would be really good to go to some skill building classes like the Crucial Conversations classes and learn a little bit about how to structure those conversations, right? So it's not like this is the only skill building that you're going to need to have, but the 6-word framework might help illuminate for you what your skill building agenda should be. And that's an important part. So the Dare to Lead book and the Dare to Lead trainings are really about developing courage building for yourself, because sometimes the barrier with resolving is that I know what I need to do, but I'm afraid to do it, or it's going to be daunting to do that. And so, in the areas where I'm able to feel vulnerability a little better, which is one of the courage building skills, is being able to experience and navigate vulnerability instead of just avoiding it. If I develop that independent skill, it helps me resolve more effectively. So it's an ongoing learning process for this. I just wanted to make sure that we start there. And self-compassion, also known as loving accountability, is going to be really important, that you're going to care for yourself while you're trying to learn and live with this framework over time. So some poll questions for you that Megan's going to activate the poll. I'm just curious, have you had a chance to complete your psychological flexibility measure worksheet? Yes or no? Just kind of want to know how many of you have your numbers. That would mean, like, do you have your set of numbers? Do you know where you're at on the scale? Just noticed it's a beautiful, beautiful day outside. Daffodils still here, doing their thing.
I'm going to give it about 3 more seconds, and then I'm going to close this one. Okay, you're at 56% yes and 44% no.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. We're going to go ahead and move through it. I still would want you to complete it, and complete it often. So that worksheet is something that I wouldn't want you just to do once and put away. I didn't have that worksheet for the first maybe 10 years of my learning how to live more psychologically flexible, because somebody actually, I guess it was 13 years, because I started learning this resilience model, the principles that we talked about last week, in 1995. And in 2008, somebody said to me once, I really want you to write a book, but until you do, can you give people this one? And it was a book called The Happiness Trap by a gentleman named Russ Harris, who's a quirky dude I'd like to have lunch with someday. And when I read The Happiness Trap, what I would say is the principles helped me so much understand the inside-out nature of life. I think the piece that was lacking for me was I was able to notice my upset and acknowledge and honor and release and relax even, but sometimes wasn't reflecting and resolving and actually taking the action to actually change my life, actually exert a new direction. So had I taken this quiz before I learned anything about this, all of my numbers would have been low, like ones. I think it starts with 1, not 0. All the way on the inner side. I would have been as psychologically restricted and constricted as possible. And if I took it at the time I read the book, it was, my score was probably maybe 23, 25. And if I would take it today, it's probably low 50s. It's sometimes high 50s, sometimes low to mid 50s. Because I forget things sometimes, and I can still have that reaction. So if you haven't done it, then I'd like you to do it because it gives you a starting point. And if you have done it, as you learn more by either reading the book or maybe watching the videos that I alluded to that Megan's going to link you to again because she's just that helpful, that what one person told me is that they did it the first time when they were watching the video and they didn't really know what the heck I was talking about. And then as they watched each of the video, they gave themselves a new pre-test number. So they had what they said first when they first read it, and then in a different color pen, they noted what they gave themselves. And in some of those situations, the after they watched the first video number was lower than they originally gave. They thought they knew more about something than they did. And then they put it away. I always say that write your name on it and put the date on it. And then if you're reading the book, put it in the book. Or if not, just keep it somewhere you can see it. And then periodically, maybe every 6 months or so, answer them again. Because what we're wanting for you to do is as you intentionally do skill building, because you were in this webinar or maybe another class or you read a book or you're just living life and you're just wondering and having new insights, you want those numbers to come out. So we'll talk more about that in just a minute. Go ahead, Megan, and launch the next one. It's a related question.
All set. It's launched.
Thank you. Just had that nice sound tell me that I had a low battery and that meant I wasn't plugged in. It'd be really nice if when I just had low energy like last night, I had some pretty excessive low energy. It'd be nice if I would have just heard that little bling and I'd be like, oh, I should go plug in, right? My daughter and I both knew it. She's like, you okay? I'm like, tired. She's like, cool. Maybe I won't give you a bunch of things to think about right now.
Okay, I'm going to give this another minute, or not another minute, another couple of seconds, sorry. It looks like things have settled, and then I will read the answers to you. Okay, I'm gonna close. All right, so in the past week, the most popular answer was 3 to 5 times a week. There are 9% at more than daily, 20% daily, 21% once, and only 1% not at all. So
oh, good.
I think we're seeing some growth in that.
Yeah, good. That's excellent. I honestly notice myself resisting or resenting something, I don't know, 5, 6, 10 times a day. Depends on the day. And it depends on what this human is interacting with. Like as I navigate my circumstances, I am not like, all open and flowing the whole day because something might jump out. This one kind of gonna give it like, what, like really? And then how, like, I resisted and resented that a little bit. Seeing myself and being able to adapt so that, I could do the next thing well. So it is a huge success if you notice it's not like attempting to notice these things is going to make you resist and resent things more. It's just uncovering how much you resist and resent things, like that you have maybe a bigger habit with this than you might have realized. The vast majority of people, at least in Western American culture, like have a resistance and resentment habit. And if you're resisting and resenting every single thing you experience in a day because your habit's really ingrained, you're going to be chronically dissatisfied. And it is hard to have effervescent energy if you're chronically dissatisfied. Um, I was sharing with somebody early this week that sometimes I think like the characters in Winnie the Pooh. When I was a person who resisted and resented to a higher degree, I had way more low moods. I got blue more often. It is the character is Eeyore, who ironically is blue and kind of has a depressed vibe going on because, it doesn't matter what I do. It's not going to get any better anyway. I could put my tail back on, but it'll probably fall off. Like, it's just that sort of resisting and resenting kind of quality. Some of that may be hormonal, but a fair amount of that is thought driven. And if we're witnessing and choosing to like notice and try to interrupt that habit, and please hear me, that dropping my resistance psychologically does not mean I'm dropping my care about the issue or my calling myself to task to show up and use my voice and try to shape the culture around that. They're not the same thing. So I'm hoping a lot of you, make a note, Megan, I want to ask that question again on the final survey, if you would please, because I'm hoping that you get so that you notice. And so if you notice that you're resisting and resenting, I don't want you to get into judgment about like now you're judging yourself. Now you actually what you would be doing is resisting and resenting that you were just resisting or resenting. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for just the wake up and the redirect. Wake up and the redirect. So, okay, because resisting what is a really big part of the suffering that we have on a day-to-day basis. Living in a stance of resisting and resenting does not allow us to create very well. So I love this phrase, which is from Russ Harris's book, unwanted personal experiences, because as a social worker and a person who's just realistic, like there are really technically sucky scenarios that people are dealing with. There's systemic injustice, there's oppression, there's discrimination, there's misfortune, there's all kinds of things that I wouldn't want to have. Like I sometimes something happens to me and I'll say to people, anybody want that? And like nobody raises their hand, nobody wants that. And so it's not that they aren't daunting. It's just being in resistance to the fact that they're happening doesn't help me navigate them at all. We try to control everything to avoid future ones. And again, proper prior planning, not a problem, but we are going to have unwanted personal experiences. There's nobody involved in this webinar that's going to just not have unwanted personal experiences, or we're having them now. So we want to get away from that part. Oh, I just screwed that up. I was going to say, if you notice yourself resisting and resenting, what would be the first word I would want to have come into your head? Acknowledge. Okay, 6 words. Acknowledge. It is what it is. What is it? Given that it is what it is, who do I want to be and how do I want to move forward? Right? It is what it is. There are people who are upset enough about the stay-at-home order that they're demonstrating in a way that I feel like is bordering domestic terrorism, as it's scaring folks. So there are other ways to protest that. So that's a thought that I have about it. Might not be your thought about it, but it is what it is. So I can't make that not happen, and I can't make that not be something that's happening in my home state. I cannot, especially when that's co-opted and it's not even about the stay-at-home order, but now there's Confederate flags and there's hate speech and swastikas and all kinds of stuff. That is not even about what it is. It's people using that to be about something else. And that's happening. And I can't make that not happen, but I can come to a place where I'm going to be curious about, given that that's happening, how do I want to show up? What does it reinforce? Where do I want to donate money? How am I going to use my Facebook page, my social media, my political whatever? How do I want to reach out to people that are maybe like really struggling with the fact that that happened? They're feeling increased fear about being in Michigan. you know, it is what it is. Given that it is what it is, who do I want to be and how do I want to move forward? So I'm going to walk you through and around this. That's this one at the bottom, the self as observer. That's really to link it to the other, because we've had a lot of conversations. It's kind of like the Karate Kid movie where like you're just painting the fence and you're wax on, wax off, and you actually know more about karate than you think you do. So this first one is like waking up the witness and starting to notice people. The better you are at noticing what's happening for you, your score is going to come out towards the end where your thoughts and feelings come and go, but there's the real meal. The real meal. The real me is this deeper universal energy, this person that can create new. The second one here, going around this way, is to what degree are you not ruled or fooled by your thinking? Again, no thought right around good or bad, but like when you have a thought, like how captivated are you by it? If your thoughts take you for a ride, if you are quick to jump on that thought train and get out of there, then you're going to be like driven by your thinking, which takes people into behavior that's not value guided sometimes. That's like the major function of that is following your thinking, stinking thinking if you're in a 12-step program, following your thinking into a relapse or into some kind of behavior that's not in your best interest. So the more we're able to see that, it's not, it's just the example, which Megan says I didn't share here. I thought maybe I did, so if I did, sorry about that. But I am aware of and have worked with people who have paranoid personality disorder. And in their thought parade, like we have this parade of thoughts. Some folks say we have 80,000 thoughts a day. And one of mine is always like, how do they count that? I could have 1,000 about how do they even count that? How do they know that? But in this person's thought parade, they have paranoid thoughts. I don't know about you, but when I think about armed men at our capital, I could have a lot of thoughts. I don't know if they're paranoid or not. Maybe they're realistic. I'm not sure, but they're scary thoughts that are in my thought parade. And for me, they come and I can see them and release them. So a person with paranoid personality disorder who has the thought that they're being watched, it becomes like a thing they live inside of, and they get very fooled by that. So there's very little separation between them and their thought. The only difference between myself and a person talking to themselves on the street is that I talk to myself in my head, and sometimes I'm aware of what I'm saying to myself, and I can have a conversation with myself where sometimes folks that you might see are like inside that and having conversations that seem super real to them as opposed to them just being a thought. But it's not like they do it and we don't. It's just in that arena, like I still have anxious thoughts. I don't take my anxious thoughts so seriously. I'm not as ruled or fooled by my anxious thoughts, but I have them. And over the course of my life, there have been times where I've had a thought that I was super attached to. Now I would call it not your already thought bucket, but your belief bucket. Like I had a belief, something I believed to be true. And whether or not I made it up totally on my own and believed it, or whether somebody gifted it to me, it was still a problem if when I had the thought, I believed it to be true. I'm going to give you some examples, and Megan already linked you to that set of videos. So if you want to lean in, it's interesting. Of the 8 videos, the one that's been watched the most times is the one it's video number 4. It's the one that's about diffusion. It has some of these ideas about how to make space. Diffusion is really just making space between you and the thought you're holding. Interestingly enough, of those videos, that's the one that's most vulnerable for me because I'm willing to share some of them that happens, like the one I'm going to do now. Sometimes you make up those thoughts completely on your own. Sometimes somebody gifts those to you. So this is a thought that I believed for a number of years. I know this is kind of a swear word, but I'm going to go with it. If Brene Brown can get away with it and get paid a lot of money, I'm going to do it too. So this is a thought that I believed. It is not a nice thought, but for a long time I thought it was true. And so because I was attached to this thought, I didn't have any space between it. I was so about the fact that I was a bad partner that I didn't see that I was with somebody that wasn't healthy. And one of the major first moments of insight for me about how diffusion works, which is really, is this thought just a thought I have sometimes? It comes through my thought parade where I do something. Still to this day, words fail sometimes, because sometimes I notice I did something that was maybe in this sort of general category, where a fear I got, it caused me to act in a way maybe a little too rigid, not who I want to be, and I act in a way that maybe earns one of these points, right? My apologies to my wife in that moment. That's going to happen. Sorry, that's going to happen over time. What's important is for me to start to notice when I have that thought, and when I'm holding that thought is like a judgment over myself, where I can't be anything but then. Because if you believe a thought like this, you're at risk of acting like your thought, right? Like a thought I didn't write down on a card that I could is one that I got from my mom, which was her being so concerned about the way I ate that what she told me that I wrote down, I could write it down right now. I think I will. I can't trust myself with food. Yep, here's me writing it down. I'm like 9 years old, and I'm writing down this rule in my rule book. Now it's in my rule book, right? And if we shame somebody and give them a rule like that, and they believe it, and a lot of times when we're upset with parenting or supervision, or like people are upset, they're feeling intensely, and they say things like this, if somebody believes you, you're in trouble. This impacted my food journey way more than anything else she could have said to me at that time. Okay, so back to this one. The very first moment I was reading Russ Harris's book, he was talking about diffusion. He was given some quirky training wheels, is what he called them, and they were. And he had this idea that you should take a thought that you had. He said, do you have a thought? And I'm going to ask you just right now, I'm not going to chat it and have you tell me it, but just if you have, like, because I knew right away. I was sitting there reading the book. I was actually at a conference for EAP counselors. It was in Atlanta, and I'm reading this book, and it says, is there a recurring thought that you have that is troubling to you? I didn't have to look for it. Like, yep. Like, as I say that to you, just give you a second. Is there a recurring thought or belief you have that when you have it, takes your breath away, causes a reaction? Just jot it down, because you might want to do this exercise later. So it says, okay, so what we want to do is pick a song, and then take that song and make up a song that goes with this. So, this is how an already thought bucket works. Someone says, quick, pick a song. The song that came to me was I've Been Working on the Railroad. You would say, why did that come through? Because my grandpa worked on the railroad, and I grew up singing I've Been Working on the Railroad. So I picked it. For some reason, it just showed up. There it is. Now it's in my thought hopper. I'm bringing it to life. And then this. Now I have a little bit of, advanced training for this, because it's a game I play with my kids where they say a song like Jingle Bells, and they say eyelashes, and I have to make up a song. It's creativity training. Some people do Sudoku puzzles. I like this game. Here's the thought. Here's the song. Here is what happened in my head. I'm a really shitty partner. I just really suck. Anyone who ends up with me just has such rotten luck. And then I said to myself, witness self, said to my thinking self, do you really believe that? Actually, I said it to my witness self. And my witness self said something for the first time. This little voice, it was little, it was quiet. It said, no. So here it was. This is the thought. I'm fused with it. When I sing it, I'm singing, and I'm like, now I'm looking at the thought. Now I can see this is the thought I have. And then I asked myself, do you really think that's true? And my deeper, wiser self said no. Then, upon further reflection, because it got a little farther out now, you guys want me to stand back here in the first one, got a little farther out now. Now I'm having all kinds of new ideas about this question. It's like, wait a minute, I'm a pretty good business partner, Millie, and my former business trainer and partner, Millie, gave me feedback one time, and I know I'm a person who took that in, incorporated it in, and tried to improve. I have good teammates. I have good relationships with other kinds of partnerships. I'm in partnerships with my friends. They all seem like they're good partnerships. I'm in good partnership with my kids. There's like really just like one area where I'm getting this feedback consistently and having this thought consistently. And then I had my EAP training come to me and said, it's kind of like, when you see an employee that's from a certain college or unit or department, not to be named here, and they're not the only person that's come from that unit or department that's struggling with how that unit and department treats them. And you're able to say, maybe you're not a terrible employee. Maybe you're not in the right unit. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm not a shitty partner. Maybe I'm not in the right relationship. And it wasn't like I just went home, by the way, and reflected and bam, resolved, because every time I thought about taking that action, I got scared and got overwhelmed. There were other things I needed to 6-word framework myself through before I could get the courage building skills to actually leave, to step into the vulnerability of, would my kids be okay? Would we financially make it? I had to be willing to do it anyway. But that's how it starts. It's like noticing a thought habit. This is a thought store I shopped in. I don't know if I put it on our thought store, which is hanging in my kitchen right now, my dining room. But it's a thought store I shopped in. I don't shop in that thought store anymore. That doesn't mean I don't sometimes think, wow, I just messed that up. But I don't get consumed by it because I know how to have space. And by not shopping in there, I'm more willing to tend to it and apologize and take accountability in the moments that they do happen. There are other thoughts you could have. I'm a terrible mother. There are times when I drop a ball related to a kid, and that's a natural thought to have in the moment, but I don't want to shop in that thought store because that's not true either. Here's a one. It's weak to ask for help. That's a culturally sanctioned thought that both men and female and male identified people get, all genders get that. And so if you're believing that to be true, that's going to maybe be a barrier to if you think this is true or that it's not okay to ask for help, then you're going to stay up late at night and closed caption videos every single night because you have another thought that says if you're going to do these videos, they need to be accessible. And so if you have that thought, if you do these videos, they need to be accessible. And then you have this other thought, it's weak not to ask for help. Have fun with that. Have fun with anything else that you're trying to do. Put your rule here. What's your rule? And do you hold that rule here or is it here? Your rule, your thought, or your belief, right? Can be positive and still cause trouble. I'm a freaking rock star, right? There are some moments when a session goes really well or a webinar goes well or I get some feedback that something I did and I might have a moment of feeling this. If I'm walking around like this, I'm going to be an egotistical ass. Like that's not helpful. That's not humble. That's not who I want to be. And it doesn't let me grow and get better. Because what does a freaking rock star have to get better, right? Although I have to say, Melissa Etheridge, she's doing at-home concerts and they're getting better, right? So she is a freaking rock star. Anyway, I just chuckled myself. Your rule, your relationship to your rule, practicing diffusion skills so that you see it and can make space, and you don't have to get rid of it. You just want to have a different relationship to it. Okay, I hope that was helpful. We're all in the same room, I'd be able to see your faces. Moving up, this acceptance scale here, you want to move from constantly struggling with your thoughts and feeling. Like here's you're trying to not have them. You're going to make yourself not have those thoughts. Or you're going to make yourself not have those feelings. It doesn't work. And so here it's more moving to a place where you're going to let the movement, the flow of it happen. So you're become more willing to name and allow emotions to metabolize and feel and be utilized. If we had more time, and I've decided I'm going to create a Health for You class around emotional literacy and intelligence and resilience, just a skill building because really understanding what emotions are meant to tell you, like starting to have a friendlier relationship with difficult or necessary emotions so that you're more willing to have them. Because we don't need to feel better, quick take a pill. We need to be better at feeling. And I think there's some skill building for that. So we're going to do that. In the meantime, here's just a short version. Like, what do I do when I'm having a big emotion? Don't try to outrun it. Don't try to outwork it. Don't try to literally, I was talking with somebody this week that has been trying to outrun fear. And she knows that she's got compulsive running habits in her past. And she will do so much better if she slows down, allows herself to feel, share it with me. She shared it with me. That was cool. And that's going to help her release empathy, somebody else caring about what you're feeling, and you caring about what you're feeling. That's what allows it to dissipate. Shame, hard, powerful emotion. When I slow down, feel, and share that, your empathy for what I'm going through is likely to make it dissipate. Brene Brown uses a metaphor of something growing in a petri dish. A little shame growing in a petri dish. If you douse that with secrecy, silence, and judgment, it's going to grow. Whether you're showing it or not, you're still going to be shame infected. When we're willing to bring that to somebody, a helper, a friend, a trusted other, someone who's earned the right to hear the story, and they bring empathy to it, and you bring empathy to it, it's going to dissipate. Right? And that's what we want. We want to actually allow our emotions to inform us and then move on about themselves. We don't want to try to stockpile them or hold them. One at the top is all the reset and refresh skills we've been talking about. It's bringing your attention to the present moment in order to release your attachment. So people get confused sometimes. Doesn't that sound like a diffusion strategy? I think all of the connection exercises, like connecting with what you can hear in the moment, noticing the birds in the backyard that I can see right now, super cute. The way the light is on my deck, like paying attention to all of that, connecting with the food, connecting with how it feels to be leaning on this door jamb, connecting with my breath. They are all diffusion strategies, because while I'm giving my attention to that fully, I'm removing it from the thoughts that are being made into movies. So that one up there, we've done a lot of work on already. The values in the key area of your life is the piece that you're leaning into. And the vast majority of people have not done serious reflection about what their life is about, who they want to be, what they want their work. I mean, people get so that if they've been so busy living life, they haven't taken a moment to sit back and wonder about it. Megan and I were talking about this earlier today, that it's so important to have the reset and refresh skills, to take some time in the morning to go for a walk without processing all the problems of the day, and just let yourself have a moment where you're resting and receiving, so that you, and then in that energy to like hold up a consideration, and to like have a larger value guided wondering about what you're doing and why. A lot of times we are doing things and they don't even make sense. One guy told me that he hated his tenure portfolio was coming. He was coming up for tenure, and his tenure garden was like dying on the vine. And he had some good energy flowing, but he wasn't watering the tenure garden. I'm like, what's up with that? And he's like, oh my God, I can't stand that. I hate that. I don't even want anything to do with it. I'm like, well, why are you doing it? Because my dad told me to. Because it was like my dad's plan, and he was a tenured professor, and that's what we do. I go, really? I go, like, if you weren't watering that, do you know what you would fully water? Like, you're kind of watering these things, but like, if you weren't watering that, what would you water? And he's like, oh, absolutely, I would water da 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 da. And so I was like, oh, he kind of did that dog look thing. Got big eyes, wondered. He quit, and he went and did something that made more sense to him. He had to break a rule, do what your dad says. Where do we get that from? Wonder, repetition. And in fact, there's a concept in psychology called repetition compulsion, where you keep doing the same thing, thinking it might have some different outcome or trying to get some different answer, but you're doing it in the same way you've always done it. So you're always going to get what you got before. So we're going to talk a little bit more about those values in a second. Operationalizing your values is really like, what's your action plan? Like, what are you going to try to do from here? This is where the daring greatly skills kind of come into play. So the lantern exercise that you did, hopefully, if you haven't done the lantern exercise, it's in the Google folder, listed as a handout. How do you want to show up and be seen and live brave in a particular area of your life? I want you to try it on. The whole Daring Greatly curriculum is around like picking a certain arena of your life and a certain way you want to show up in that arena. And then what permission do you need to give yourself to start showing up that way? And then what values are going to guide your way? So these are some of the questions, and you're going to have this PowerPoint slide is already in the folder. So you can sit with these questions. You can save this to your screen if you want to wonder about these questions on a regular basis. What sort of person do you want to be? If you weren't struggling with your feelings or avoiding your fears, what would you channel your time and energy into? What sort of relationships do you want to build? You don't want your focus to be on what's not okay right now in your life. You want to focus on what you want to create and how you can just move in the direction of. The difference between goals and values, this is a super important piece. Let's do values. They're your heart's deepest desires. They're like the direction you want to go. They're like what you want your life to be about, what you want to stand for. They're leading principles that guide you and motivate you as you move through life. They're directional, they're ongoing, and you can't ever be done with them, right? So if I value justice, I'm going to continue to value justice until I stop breathing, right? If I want to be a forward-heading person, I'm going to be that. Whenever I get to the next thing, I'm going to want to be moving some more. Your values give you a sense that what you're doing in the hard work and the difficulties and the failures, like they're what's worth it. It gives you motivation, because if you're value guided, you want to keep moving towards those accomplishments, that kind of living. Describes what you want to do and how you want to do it. Goals, on the other hand, those are things that you can complete, you can check off, like a goal to get a college degree. You can check those off. Your goals should be in service to your values. So I do have my son Duncan on my brain today, but as an example of somebody shifting from goal to value is when he was a younger kid. At the time, the song "I Want to Be a Billionaire," so millionaire, billionaire, I don't know, some kind of billionaire. "I Want to Be a Billionaire So Freaking Bad" was a song that was on, and he was just sort of like thinking about money. As I watched him grow and develop, and he still has a career, he's about to embark on a career if the world doesn't stop, where he will make a lot more money than his mama ever made. Probably in 1 year might make more money than I ever made. Not sure about that. My point being, it's been nice to watch him grow into this idea that became like, I want to be a person who earns a good living because I want to take care of family. And sometimes he has that framed about me and his siblings, and his Karen, his other mom person, and sometimes it might be about his future family that it doesn't have yet. But it's no longer just about the goal of making, because his other brother and sister would be like, "What for?" Like, and I'd be like, "Yeah, you want to make money, but why? Like, why? Just to make money? Like, is that just a thing? Like, what's it mean?" Difference between goals and values. So here's the chat question that I want to share. I want you to, if you've done the lantern exercise, you've kind of already done it, but I would like for you to chat, what's the area of your life that you're reflecting on? And if you've come up with some values or some just occurred to you, what are the 2 or 3 values that, I just want to open it up and see what kind of chat we get about that. I can't find my cursor here. I'm just looking for some chat, like name an area and tell me what your guiding principles are there. That one's, someone said career dissatisfaction. That's a statement of where you're at. That's not a value guided direction. If ambition, humor, family. So give me the area, like as a partner, I want to show up as sweet, as reliable, as open-hearted would be an example. braveness, balance, simplicity, peace. Okay, in the world of being a better coworker, what kind of, like, when you think of what it means to be a better coworker, how do you want to show up? Like, what would that look like? What would a high quality coworker for you, person who said that, what would that look like? In my career, my values, honesty and leadership. I would want you to pull leadership and say, as a leader, what are my values? And want to get to, so that we're getting to be more specific. Simplicity. You want to like be more frugal or declutter. Like, what about that's important? As a grandmother, I want my grandchildren to feel unconditional love. Career, justice, diversity, equity. Yay. As a Reiki practitioner, I want to show up to help people feel better. What are the values? You want to show and radiate love. So love is a very high value. Equity, confidence, and curiosity for work. Okay. Let's go so fast now. It's like you needed a minute. As a social worker, I want to show up as compassionate, creative, and kind. I would also want you to be feisty and use your voice against power. Parent, openness, honesty, and truth. Yeah, if those are your guides, then even, it challenges some of the questions, right? If you want to be about openness, integrity, and truth, that's going to show up different. As a vegan, I want to be empathic, compassionate, and vote with my dollars. That's the voting with your dollars part. That's committed action. As a mother, judgment. You want to be judgment free. As a mom, you want your child to grow up in a judgment free home. So what are the value guided principles? There's probably going to be more than just non-judgmental. That's one. What else do you want to do that? Because there's probably a collection that you want to think about. So someone's saying, in my personal life, grieving the loss of a parent. As you're grieving the loss of your parent, what's most important? What do you want to lean into? It changes your grief process. Again, I want to offer what's lost, what's left, and what's possible. So my question would be, as I'm grieving my parent, how do I want to keep and honor my parent in my life? That might be a value. A value for me related to grieving is the ever-present nature of the people that I've lost. So that's going to help me have conversations. It's a great example. It's going to help me have conversations even if they're difficult. And they're going to make me cry sometimes, because if I'm not willing to feel the feeling, I'm not going to be able to have the value of keeping those people present in my life. These are just some ideas. So if you haven't done the lantern exercise, work through it. It's got directions on it. If it gets confused and you need some help in doing it, let me know. Somebody wants to continue to contribute in powerful and important ways, even though they're retired and we're in a pandemic with no end in sight. Okay, so people who don't have a value-guided retirement, they just struggle, and it can feel like they're not thriving. So this is a person who is, the change is like, now they went from working to retired, and now they need to figure out, how do I want to be in this chapter? And what does that look like if I want to still contribute my voice to justice in that fiercely loving way? I want to be a parent that doesn't take sides, keeper of the peace through the storm with high ethics. So there's probably some refining to that. Like, what does it mean? What does that mean? Do a little bit more wondering about that. So some of Brene Brown's books, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, kind of go into talk. Rising Strong, probably the best. Actually, if you're struggling with your current circumstances and you don't feel like you're very value-guided and directional, the book I might suggest is Russ Harris's later book called The Reality Slap. It's like when reality slaps you across the face and you got cartoon stars because it's so upsetting. How do you get your bearings and how do you move forward? The Reality Slap by, what's his name? Harris. I just blanked on his first name. I just said it. Okay, so I'm going to move away from the chat on this and spend the next couple minutes. If you've got a Q&A question in your head, I'm looking at the clock, you go ahead and type it to Megan Russ Harris. Thank you. Thank you, sweetie. She's like, woo, you got a lot on your brain, girl. That's obvious. Okay, so a few more things that I want to say about thanks, Megan, for that link too. I see that. A few more things I want to say about reflecting and resolving, because that's kind of where people are kind of at. Acknowledge and honor. release and relax, reflect and resolve. So I'm going to resolve to change the battery in my clicker as soon as we're done because I think it might be low. Okay, so here's the thing. What actions can I take right now that's lined up with my values? So sometimes it's clear. If I want to be value guided, I'm going to do the A instead of B. And when I say, is B lined up? No, clearly B is not lined up. Damn it, because B sounds more fun. B sounds more interesting. Maybe B's easier, but it's not lined up. So if my value with my parenting is that I'll do what's in the best interest of my kids, that was kind of by the way, a value that I had when I was trying to navigate custody and those kinds of things, and they were younger. Now I probably need to shift that, or if I'm always doing what's in the best interest of my kids, I won't be doing what's in the best interest of me. So sidebar on that, sometimes we also have to upgrade our rules. We also have to upgrade our value statements. They should be something we're revisiting regularly. So what action can I take right now that's lined up with my values? Where is this is based on the conversation I had yesterday. Maybe it's daunting and maybe there's oppression and maybe I don't know what to do about this leader. But where's my value-guided cutting edge? How can I push myself a little bit? What kind of risks and change? Because you're trying to figure out if your hesitation to take action is about the barrier, the person, the policy, the situation. This came up 3 times yesterday. Or is your hesitation to take action about the emotions, fear, vulnerability, possible rejection, shame, somebody shaming you? Like, what's the rub here with why I'm not taking the action? I still have a fear-based reaction that causes me not to use my voice in my own unit and on campus because I end up with a fear of being in trouble or some bad thing happening. I continue, my cutting edge is to continue to try to talk about the ideas in a brave way, to let people know, to do the work. And so I'm in my own way sometimes with that. I want you to notice that too. If I were going to demonstrate my values in this situation, what might I do? Oh, I would probably say something at the staff meeting right now. But when I think about saying that, I go, that's probably fear. And if you haven't tried it, and since you haven't tried it and had a bad outcome, are you assuming it would be a bad outcome? Are you assuming that you can't navigate a bad outcome? Are you letting the possibility of a bad outcome interrupt your value-guided behavior? Or is there so much documented proof that it's not a good idea? This is why I never give advice to people about what they should do. I'm wanting them to get connected. I may help them sort out like what's what with that, but I want them to get connected to their wisdom. Their wisdom and value-guided behavior might look different than mine. And when I use my value-guided standard to judge somebody else, I can be all kinds of a range of harm, up to and including very violent, if my values, which I got from my experience, which is based on race and gender and class and all of those things, if I put those on somebody else, as this is a should, I could be really destructive. What's the next best thing I can do? What 3 things can I do today that would take me in a direction? So it kind of goes back to this idea that it's not like I'm just going to use my values and get it done. So Megan really likes the story that I share that on the morning after I made the decision to leave that last relationship, I was completely overwhelmed with all the things that I needed to do and was just spinning. And my good friend then, and now wife, said to me, what 3 things can you do today to move yourself in the direction you want to go? Right, with 3 things. So it had values, like the direction I want to go. And it had resolve, like you're going to take some action. So it was like, open a bank account, get a lawyer, and right now, ask for some time off work. I was going to say, I couldn't remember the 3rd one, but ask for some time off work. So I called her back like an hour later and I said, I got those done. And of course, don't you know what she said? She said, great. So what 3 things can you do between now and the end of the day that would move you? So she wanted me to keep moving towards, and she didn't say, go do these 3 things. She said, what 3 things do you want to do to move yourself in the direction you want to go? This is a very wise woman that we're talking about here. So what 3 things can I do that would take me in a direction I most want to go? Okay, so I said that morning the lilacs were blooming. They were just, and I was staying at a place, a dear friend's house, major lilacs lining. And I was saying to my friend, wow, the lilacs are so pretty. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. And she's like, what 3 things? And then I heard myself say in that moment, yeah, maybe by the time the lilacs bloom next year, things will be different, right? And I was on campus yesterday and the lilacs are budding, but they haven't quite bloomed. And I didn't have that frame. There's some things I want to have happen by the time the lilacs bloom this year. Well, one, and I'm almost there. So I can see that. But I can say right now, even though things seem so churned up, I can invite, what is it that I would like to have be happening for myself, for my family, for the world, for the campus, by the time the lilacs bloom on Michigan State's campus next year, right? And what do I want to be doing to move myself in that direction? What value-guided action plan do I need to do? Plan, got to actually kind of, this is rubber meets the road. What do I mean by value-guided action? Taking effective actions guided by your value. That sounds like I just said the same thing backwards, but it's taking effective action. It's not judging it by the outcome of the effective action. It's just about doing the action. And then, I get knocked down, I get up again. You're never going to keep me down. I get knocked down, I get up again. I move forward. So rising after a fall in a value-guided arena is part of the work that we need to learn to do. Not spending energy and resources in opposition to your value. As the singer-songwriter Jewel would want us to know, no longer lend your strength to that which you wish to be free from. We have to stop putting our energy into things, which is why someone voting with their dollars related to being a vegan, not putting your energy and resources in opposition, which could even include being resisting and resenting that other people aren't joining you, putting yourself in a position where you're not spending energy in opposition. Behaving with integrity to your values, and when you don't, own it and circle back around with those or impact. Keep your slate clean slate living, where if I had a slate where I wrote down the things that I'm feeling guilty about, I'm going to notice that and redirect. Doing what it takes to live by your values, even if it brings up pain and discomfort. Another thing that a very, very, very wise woman said to me is, wisdom isn't always easy, but it's always wise. And so, not doing what's easy over what's best. It's important to note, even though it's 2:30 and I'm at the time frame, it's important to note that you could be doing some action that seems very positive, like riding your bike every day. And you might be fooled into thinking that that's in alignment with your values about exercise. But if it's actually a barrier to having a high quality conversation with your kid or your partner, and you're using it as a way to avoid some other value guided activity, then it's not a good idea. It's still a numbing practice or a barrier to that. So back to resolving. Also, the question with resolving is, it's an assessment. So given that I want to show up this way and my value-guided self just laid out that action plan, do I have the skills I need? What do I need to learn to allow me to show up like that? Is there a safe, trusted person I can talk to about my desire to show up in this new way? Have is be intentional. It's like, I don't even know what that sentence was supposed to be. Have an intentional action plan, I think is what that's supposed to say. Do I have an integrity partner? Is there someone I'm checking in? I have an integrity partner related to my values, related to work at Michigan State. And if I mess up or I have to have a hard conversation, I will tell this person I'm having it. I will go have it, and I will come back and tell her how that went. And she really keeps me committed to my values. And when it goes well, she's like, awesome. And when it's not, she's like, ouch. Okay, what can we do? So if you're in a tough situation, you got to have those integrity partners. And I will leave it there, except there's the Q&A we didn't do, except to tell you what your home reflection is for the 147 of you that are still out there. I would like you this week to notice how you talk to yourself, to start to notice how you treat yourself, to just start to, don't judge it, don't even try to change it this week. You just want to start noticing notice how you help yourself when you're having a hard time. So I would like you to notice what's helpful. I would like you to notice what's not helpful. Also, in the Google folder, there's a handout called Exploring Your Personal Call to Courage. It's written for someone in their academic role. Just cross the academic role off and write whatever role you want to think about, and that should help you both with your values and your call to courage. And then also, if you could fill out the survey this week, that would be super awesome. Whatever questions you have that I did not open up for question and answer today, whatever question you have, chat it or put it in the Q&A now. I'm going to open up chat just in case there's anybody that has anything they want to say before they go. Put it in the Q&A and I will speak to it. Oh, somebody's quoting Melissa Etheridge. We're going to need to have lunch now just because you did that. Live your life with love and bravery, and you shall lead a life uncommon. Jewel, such an amazing song. Yes, that was Jewel. The song Life Uncommon. Maybe we'll put that in the chat next time. Cindy Lou, thank you. May you be well. May you be safe. May you find grace in your day-to-day life. May you know you are loved always. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. If anybody has a question that they want to just talk to me about, feel free to email me. And we will see you all next session, next Friday.